Alright, this is going to be a breakdown for my Caramelldansen remix. A lot of this was mostly just a musical shitpost that also was an experiment for writing out happy hardcore music. I'm not going to go over a ton of the sound design because it's all super basic, but I will go over some of the structuring and why I did certain things, including the mixing, because the mixing on this is kind of stupid, including the master channel. So to get started, the first part starts with a piano piece, which is actually exported from just an Ableton grand piano. And I just bounced it to audio so I could get this reverse sweep at the end of it. Then it goes into the actual song. This just has some effects. A lot of Virtual Riot effects in this one, but just sweeps and stuff. Stuff like that. The synths had some layering, not a ton, but in this, you have a square that's just an octave lower. And this is just following the main melody from the original. And the original is actually just the song. I just EQ'd out some stuff to make it less conflicting with the other elements that I've added to it. So if you solo that, it's just... And I used it to both write out what the melody is, the bass line, and this is where the vocals for the song are coming from as well. After that, I put this into the song, or into the session, and then just had to tempo match, and then I broke down which parts of the song. And that's why the arrangement for it is a little bit different compared to the original, but I also didn't feel like making a full pop song. So, yeah, that's the original. You got chords, more chords, which we'll play a little bit later, an ARP, and more piano to play through it. The drums are just some crash cymbals, and then we got these snare and kick I actually made myself. So kick, snare, and the snare is a lot quieter, but it's made to layer. It doesn't ever play on its own. It's just adding to the kick. So if we go back through it, you got this. These. That, with the volume chopping, was just done inside of the clip. That's all that is. Although it does have a filter sweep, which should be here. And then the bass line. And this extends throughout the entire jam session, which is fine. And then whenever it gets to the actual verse, these two cut out and it just keeps the sub. And that is mostly just to get rid of these higher harmonics so that whenever the vocals come over, they're not conflicting with anything. The lead synth stops as well, and you just have this happening. So if I were to actually solo out the synths for the verse, there is the stabby instrument. Doesn't do a whole lot. And then no effects going on down here. It's just instruments. This is just kicks happening. And then you have the vocals. That's it. Except for this. This is just a duplicate of whatever was happening at the time. So like, it's just that, but pushed through some saturation and turned up an octave. I went ahead and made this the build just because I didn't want to continue the verse and just have it be the same thing and then try to write out a different build for it, because I didn't think it needed it for this particular song. So instead I just had the rest of the verse turn into a build. The drums are doing what you would expect for a build. There's no bass in this section at all, and that's so that whenever the bass hits on the drop, it's a little bit more impactful. You do have instruments still playing. It's just them doing the same thing. And that's it up until the drop. When the drop hits, it is just drums are super basic. That snare has a lot of reverb. You got the original playing. This, I forgot what this was. Yeah, it's just the lower part for the transition into the second half of this section. It just adds to it. You have bass line, all three of the instruments going on. The lead is not present during this section, and that's because the lead sits around the same spot that the vocals sit at, so if you have them both playing at the same time, you're going to get a lot of conflicting things happening. And so it's easier to just take the lead out. For mixing purposes, but also for songwriting purposes, it makes it more interesting to have different elements happening at different times, rather than just having everything happening at the same time, and then just having things kind of drop out while keeping everything else playing. That's more of an arranging thing. The chords are just playing straight through. That's all they do. This is just a higher version of the chords. The ARP doesn't start until a little bit later, during whenever the vocals cut out. This, I don't know why I put this in here. I think I was going to do a little harder version of the song, and I left it in, but it doesn't do anything. At least nothing that you can really hear. So if I were to play it, like, it's just... that's all it does, and it does it twice. I guess it kind of adds to it, but it's nothing major. You don't have any effects happening until this build. And then it's just snare kick back to this. Same thing as earlier. The second verse has a little bit more going on. So you got that. That is just, one's an octave higher, one's an octave lower. They have the exact same processing on both of them. Yeah, it's just that. It just gives it a different feel going into it, so whenever this starts... And this is what happened whenever I let the verse continue and be a verse and then make a separate build. I just added a snare drum to it. That's it. That's all I did. I don't think any instruments actually changed. There's no other effects. I think I got really lazy with the effects on this song, because that's it. But yeah, the second verse just continues out, and then it goes into the build. And normally, this section in the original was the bridge, the slower section of the song. it would sound like that. Because I really hope that doesn't get, I really hope I don't get copyright strike for that. Oh well, there's not a whole lot happening here. This 8-bar section is practically just that going into this. Oh, it's still. I have a lower version. Oh, keep hitting the button. Little drum fill. And then it goes into this kind of airy. This, I don't know why I chose to do this, but I did. I made this is just a delay, but I manually wrote out the delay, and I don't know why I did it, but I did, so there's that, I guess, for whatever reason. And then it goes into an actual build for it, which has the kick building up. I also added this clap. Don't know why, I just felt like it could use it, and that is also one of 2 times in the entire song that clap is used, aside from this bit right here. This clap, I don't know if I even really needed it, but it's there. This is the original just being chopped up, and I made it 1 clip so that I could transpose the internal pitch. There's 1 lead synth kind of following, which is this detuned synth. And some other effects rising up. That's about it. And then the rest of the drops are practically everything that's already happened earlier in the song. I made it so that it still did what the original did, where it had a slightly different arrangement for the drop. So it starts there, it goes back to the vocals, back to the final jam. That detuned synth is off now, but it's an easy fix. But yeah, that's the arrangement for it. It's all super basic. The ending for it, I just kept the original ending and just let that kind of play out with some reverb and delay. That's it. That's the arrangement. A lot of what's giving it the feel, though, the bounciness, is going to be in the chords and some of the leads. I'm using a lot of the kilohertz transgate, and this is fantastic for this type of stuff. It's called a transgate for a reason. It helps out with making risers as well, if you want your risers to have a little more percussive impact in your song. And even then, once I have this, I don't set it to 100% mix, like for the chords. Because of where the mix is at, it still gives it a percussive feel, but it's not completely dropping out sound. If you were to put out 100%, it would. At like 84, 85%, it leaves it. And so that's helping to keep the percussive element while also filling up a ton of space. And I put that on a lot of these different instruments. I put it on the chords, I put it on here, and I think that might have been all I put it on, actually. Oh, well, the chords were a big part of the song just because of how much sonic space they took up. And then after that, it's just, it was getting a lot of the layering down. So like the lead has a couple layers, not all playing at the same time. This lower one was specifically made for the intro, just because the intro was going to be too high pitched with just a higher square wave. But it has a saw. This is a lower saw, and this is a heavily detuned saw. And they all follow the square. And that's it. I think there is some glide, maybe. Yeah, there's some glide, 35 milliseconds. That's it. Super basic song. This was... I don't know if I love or hate this song, but whatever it is, I do. After that, mixing wise, this was also kind of experimental because I tried to push this a little hotter than I probably normally would. So everything is being routed to this channel here. And this channel is everything that's not my drums. The actual drums that I'm using here, the kick and snare, go into these two channels, which are just in channels. They don't go out to anything. They receive signal, and then the channel here,
why did I do this?
has a sidechaining unit that picks it up from there. That's neat. So everything's being sidechained to those channels, and then this is not normal. I don't know why I chose to do this. This is a rack I made similar to the fat rack. I don't know why I put it on this bus channel the way I did, and then small EQ curves to help with the energy of it, mixed gel just for more light compression, and then sidechained. Between the drums peaking at 0, everything else peaking at negative 2.7, it's going pretty hot into the master. Oh my god, I'm choking. There's another EQ curve. This utility is here just at the end and also going into the drop. This is just to make the drop sound louder, and this is because it was going to ring out way too long, so I needed to cut it off. And then another EQ, just cutting out some absurd high frequencies and low, going into a saturator with soft clipping on and changing the low frequency adjustment. That's it. And so it's pushed really hard. And I will say that the kick, that sounds heavily clipped. And if you look at it, it kind of is. But if I open that in the browser and just play it, that's just how it sounds. That's not from the mixing and mastering. That's just a very loud kick drum. The snare, it's fine, I guess. I didn't care about the snare in this track, so it's whatever. But yeah, it's a fun song. I fucking hate it.